No, you're in the middle of nowhere in America, if I remember right, and you're really active in this movement. Can you just explain how and why you got involved with the Unity4J movement?
Yeah, I'm in Iowa in the United States, pretty much in the middle. I'm in the capital of Des Moines, so it's at least a big city for a flyover state. So yeah, I have been following WikiLeaks and the story of Julian in the embassy on and off. I mean, I remember in 2010 when the leaks started coming out about the Iraq War and the Afghanistan and collateral murder, and how much that opened my eyes to what was really going on and what our country, the U.S., was really doing over there. And so following on and off, and then especially after uh, he got banned, or his internet was taken away in 2018, early 2018, and kind of bringing that to the forefront of what is going on and why is he still in there, and really feeling like, well, what am I going to do? What I don't, I'm not a journalist. I'm not a computer person that can do much. So I felt kind of helpless. And then
There is no doubt there are people watching this right now feeling exactly the same way as you did.
Yeah, so I followed a lot of the news on Twitter. That was kind of how I was getting the alternative news at the time. I wasn't really active on Twitter. And Unity4J formed and the vigils started, and then they started calling out for volunteers. And I kind of molded over for a few weeks on, like, again, what am I gonna do? Like, how am I gonna help? And so I finally went to the Discord server, signed up, and they advertised for somebody to help on the Twitter team. And I was like, well, I know Twitter, I know how it works, I could do this. And so I volunteered, and then I just started doing anything and everything I could, whether it was write a press release or edit video, create content on Twitter, pulling out Julian's quotes and old videos and speeches. We have an amazing Pinterest library that has collections of videos and articles and speeches Julian has done. There's so much content and so much in his own words that it's really enjoyable to go through that and pull those pieces out and get people to hear him respond, because so many of the smears and the media's narrative against him, he doesn't get to respond to. So getting to pull out pieces, and also a few years ago when he was predicting some of these things that are starting to occur, that's kind of fun to pull out too. So yeah, I've just kind of been working my way up the ladder and being as involved as possible. And I, joke that everything happens at 4 a.m. my time, and that's okay. At least I can know what's going on thanks to the internet.
Well, Christy, you're proof that no matter where you are in the world, that if you've got an internet connection and you've got a heart and you want to stand up for what's right and stand up for the journalism and stand up for the fourth estate and democracy, that you know what, wherever you are in the world, you really can make a difference. And
definitely,
thanks so much for what you do. Just thanks so much for what you do, and thanks for coming on and updating us on what's going on with Unity4J. I'll make sure I put all the links to anywhere we can get in touch with the Unity4J movement and keep tabs on what is going on, because it's so important that, like you say, we connect people from different movements, because there's so many different movements that really could benefit from Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. I mean, I was at Pride just a week or two ago in London, and if there is one, and then you got Grenfell Tower a few weeks before. I was at that march, and these are all things over here in this country where those movements have probably never heard of Julian Assange. But if there's one person who could highlight the suppression that LGBTQ people have been under, or it's one person who could highlight just maybe get those leaks that would prove that Grenfell really was a disaster waiting to happen, if it's going to be Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. And this is why it's so important. And I just thank you for standing up on the other side of the world and getting involved. Just thanks so much for what you do.
Well, thanks for having me. I think it's important for people in the U.S. to get involved, because obviously our government is pushing to persecute this man and this freedom of information. I don't think anybody who, I mean, either side of the aisle you're on, you want to know information. You want to know what your government is doing, whether it's happening at the border or it's happening across the world. So really what Julian and WikiLeaks stand for, I think anybody can get behind. And unfortunately, our media here in the US doesn't do a very good job of explaining what's happening to him, explaining what the US is trying to do to him.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are shocked when they find out. And they don't understand why somebody who's trying to tell the truth would be thrown in prison for 175 years. That just doesn't compute, but they don't know. So I think
I find the line he proved war criminals were war criminals really does hit home with people because they don't realize that that's really what he proved.
Exactly. And unfortunately, the war criminals are out walking free while he sits in Belmarsh right now,
absolutely,
facing extradition. And so, it's very interesting to help light that light bulb in people and make the connection to, oh, I've heard that name. I've heard of WikiLeaks, but I didn't know this was actually happening in my country. Yeah,
I find that when people know the truth, when people know the facts, they generally are horrified with what's gone on. And it's so important that movements like Unity4J have a voice and have a voice on social media as well, because otherwise, you know what, Twitter, Google, Facebook, all really they are is just state-sponsored fascism.
Exactly.
Because, you know, state-sponsored, approved messages, this is what you can say. This is a movement towards fascism, which is very scary, and we've got to fight back against it. And I just thank you for standing up the other side of the world and doing just that. Thanks very much, Christy Dopf.
Thank you very much.